Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Chocobo Dash. I am one of your hosts, Nell Celestine.
Yar, and I'm Elliot Lefebvre as the fog rolls in off the harbor.
Oh god, you're really gonna do that, aren't you?
Arr.
Alright, so we got a wonderful show lined up for everybody today. But first and foremost, I do have a shout out I have to make. Lazarus Fabul of Siren. I believe I owe you a shout out because you were the only person to correctly guess the reference from 2 episodes ago. When I mentioned my title that I wanted back, which was Crystal Bearers, and said I wanted to be able to manipulate gravity, you were the only person that got Final Fantasy The Crystal Chronicles The Crystal Bearers correct. So congratulations, and thank you very much for listening.
We're very proud of you. Okay, I'm taking the sock patch off.
I told you wouldn't last. But with that aside, let's dive into this week's topics. It is getting, they just released a whole slew of information over the last couple of weeks, and so we're kind of distilling it down because by the time this episode comes out, 2.3 will be out within like a day or two afterwards. So we don't want to overwhelm everybody with a bunch of information that is currently more so theories and debatings, whereas the next episode after this, we'll be able to give a little bit more concrete information on the first-hand accounts.
So let's dive right in and start off with something a little bird-related. People have been asking on the forums about whether or not we will be getting any kind of content designed for chocobos or other companions for players to be using. And we've received an official response. We've been told that the development team, and I'm quoting, the development team doesn't have any plans to add dungeons for chocobos or group content for companions at the moment. However, lore-wise, we'll be adding quests in patch 2.3 for chocobo raising, and you'll be able to learn more about chocobo lore through these to build on what you can learn through the main scenario quests and companion system unlocking quests.
I feel kind of disappointed because I do remember them mentioning before that they would be looking to add something so you can bring a chocobo into a dungeon.
To be fair, that's not something that's necessarily off the table. What they said was not we have no plans to implement the option to use chocobos. What they said was we currently have no plans for chocobo dungeons or specific chocobo content. The difference is that, for instance, map hunting is not technically chocobo content, but you can do it with a chocobo. You can bring your chocobo along, and I've been in many parties where, you have 4 people, and they all bring out a chocobo, and they can take on larger group content that way. So we don't know for a fact that we're not going to be able to bring our chocobos into dungeons in the future. We just know that there's not going to be something specifically designed to bring your chocobo along.
Well, I suppose that's true, but I was really looking forward to eventually bringing my chocobo into, say, Sistasha or something, just for the fun of it. But, that's something that we can always look forward to, because that might be coming out down the road, but you just gotta find that topic and let them know that this is something you do want, and show your support for it. Because if you show enough support, they'll at least continue to know that that's something that people want.
I think it's especially important also for certain solo instances that you will have to go into over the course of the storyline. It's kind of a shame that for a lot of kind of neat moments for a chocobo that you've built up as a companion, you can't bring them along, you can't do anything with them, they just sort of perpetually hang back whenever something interesting happens. So as a result, the chocobo feels a little underused, especially when it has a pretty robust system and when we're getting a more robust system added in 2.3. So, as Nell said, speak up about this, let the developers know this is something we're interested in, and, just don't count on seeing it anytime in the very near future.
Alright, speaking of near future, though, we do have some new information from the dev team regarding patch 2.3 and some of the content involved. So first and foremost, I'm going to jump in here. There was a couple of questions asked about new crafting gear in 2.3, and they did say, and I quote, "We'll be introducing new higher-level primary tools for both Disciples of Land and Hand in 2.3. This is after we were already given an insane grind to get your crafting tools for I-70, and we're not even getting any new gear per se for the rest of our slots. At this point, if they add just brand new accessories, like any job accessories, it would be easier and better for you to get an I-90 accessory and just meld crafting materia to it, and it would have better stats than your current crafting gear. And this is ridiculous.
And that's actually one of the big issues that they're facing right now with crafting, is that, unfortunately, the pace of crafting has not kept up with the pace of gear and the pace of overall upgrades, especially when you face the fact that, as was just mentioned, in order to get a new tool in 2.2, you had to go through a pretty crazy amount of grinding and eating and just generally doing your best to try and get just enough so that you could harvest these hard-to-reach materials, these difficult recipes, just in order to get a slight improvement over what you already had. So we're facing a problem where crafters are not getting stronger at the same rate that physical classes and magical classes are getting stronger, and as a result, the more time goes by, the more everything just lags further and further behind.
It's not even that. It's the last patch, which was about 6 months after the game launched, we got a new headpiece and a new tool that went from I-55 to I-70. This patch coming up, we're getting a new tool. That means body, head, hands, waist, legs, feet, earrings, neck, wrist, both wings, offhand, have not changed in almost a year.
It also means that, again, we don't even, to be fair, we don't know what the process is going to be yet for getting these new tools, and we don't know, perhaps there may also be some new offhands, which are something that is desperately needed in terms of upgrade as a tool. But it's really kind of a glaring oversight in terms of what crafters can look for upgrade, what they can work toward, and what crafting classes can do other than just craft things and hope they sell on the market.
It's ridiculous that the common conception right now is these new tools are going to require desynthesizing the old tools into making a product for the new ones. Which means if you desynthesize it and you don't get that rare item that you need for crafting your new tool, you're looking at having to grind up 50 of those high quality items or gather X number of logs or rocks to get a new tool, try to desynthesize that, and then go again. And that is unforgivable if that's the case, because that is basically making it an absolute ridiculous mess of grind.
To be fair, at this point, we don't know. That is the speculation, but we don't know. For all we know, it's something that you can desynth from tools as low as level 10, for instance. So we don't know yet what's going to be required. We don't even know if desynthesis is going to be factored into it, although considering the heavy emphasis that we've seen on the new system and how it will force crafters to specialize a bit more, there's no certainty yet. And I think what's eating at a lot of people is that uncertainty. We don't know yet what it's going to be like. We don't know what you're going to have to do for these tools, and given a lot of the systems and a lot of the horrible, horrible grinds we were introduced to in 2.2, people are understandably nervous.
It's true, and it kind of makes me pine for some older days.
Speaking of pining for older days, we've finally gotten some more feedback on the long-standing community petition to change the Magitek Armor mount theme to music from Final Fantasy VI. We were told in no uncertain terms that since this was Magitek Armor for 14, there are no plans to add in a tune from Final Fantasy VI, despite the fact that, as I think some of you may remember, when the Magitek Armor was first shown off on the official site, it was paired with a piece of music from Final Fantasy VI.
It was paired with Terra's theme for the official trailer. In my retort to this post, I posted that link to that trailer. I also posted a link to the Distant Worlds rendition of Terra's theme, as well as the classic Super Nintendo version. I went on to mention the fact that I stand against this decision. There has been lore, the lore team has said that people should not be able to, like a bard should not be able to repair like their rings or accessories, but you can do that now. They said that it's since it's a 14 specific armor, they have no plans to use the song, but the Final Fantasy II song, the remix, is used for a specific fate. It's used in the storyline for a specific battle. Crystal Towers from Final Fantasy III uses Crystal Tower music, has Crystal Tower related bosses. We had Lightning show up, and the Lightning's battle theme was there. We've had Gilgamesh show up, and Gilgamesh's battle theme, Battle on Great Bridge, is there. If this is supposed to be a fan service title, as Yoshida has said, then giving fans their fan service is important.
Especially when you consider that these Magitek Armor designs were seen pretty much never throughout the story of 1.0. So it's not even a very strong defense. Everyone knows that they added this in because that's the most iconic suit of Magitek Armor, which was specifically designed to echo the artwork created by Amano for Final Fantasy VI. It's very obviously meant to be an homage, and, you know, if they don't want to add music in, that's fine. But this excuse immediately comes across as, oh, come on. You're not fooling anyone. We all know that this is, you know, a distinctly Final Fantasy XIV armor in the same way that Crystal Tower is a distinctly Final Fantasy XIV area, which is to say that it's not at all.
I mean, if it's a legal thing, they could have come out and said that, and the community would have been more accepting of that answer.
Agreed.
But they had already used it in the trailer. So that basically negates the whole it could be a legal thing. Not to mention, I do believe Square owns the rights to that music, don't they?
They should. It would be very odd if they didn't, seeing as how they're continuing to re-release versions of Final Fantasy VI that contain that music.
Not to mention, it's in, I'm going to butcher this name, The Rhythm?
Theatrhythm.
Yeah, Rhythm, thank you. It's in that game as well. So, yeah, they've kind of owned the rights to the music. So there's the only thing that I can think of is they don't want to do it, and this is their excuse?
I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts it's simply a case of, okay, the technical issues are annoying, and here's a good reason we can say why we're not doing it. But
if they said technical reasons were annoying or something, the fans still would have been more accepting than, oh, the lore team says this.
Yeah, it's not a convincing excuse.
No, it's not convincing at all in the slightest. If you go to my Twitter feed, I posted up the link. You can go and show your support for the topic to try to overturn this thought. I put a hashtag on there called #ForTheFans. If you agree, throw it out there.
So let's move on to another topic, though, one that's a little less contentious. We've recently seen a theme, or a thread, I should say, come onto the forums in which people are arguing that Final Fantasy XIV should find some way of working experience that would be earned at 50 into the game system. The specific proposal was tied into the Atma system, which, as we all know, is a miserable, interminable grind. But, you know, by the same token, they're also arguing that this system could be applied to other things, much like how in Final Fantasy XI, collecting experience at the level cap could be used to earn merit points and improve your various classes as well as your base stats.
Yes, this was actually posted to us directly on one of the YouTube videos for us to look over and give some feedback on. Now, I did take a brief look at it, and it looks kind of interesting, but it also looks rather difficult to implement.
Now, here's the thing that I would bring up. First of all, there is already a game that does this, other than Final Fantasy XI. WildStar, which recently launched back on June 3rd, does the exact same sort of thing, when you are at max level, you basically, earning experience earns points towards currency, which you can use to redeem for endgame gear, power improvements, and so forth. It's also not the first game to do it. Both Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 allow you to still earn experience at the level cap, which you can earn towards skill points to earn more skills, get more powerful that way. So there are a number of systems. I know The Elder Scrolls Online has a similar system. There are a lot of games out there that basically take earned experience when you're at the level cap and still turn it towards something useful.
think the Old Republic did that as well.
No, it didn't.
I have a secondary experience bar that once you hit 50, you could keep raising that up, and it was basically a legacy bar that would bounce between all of your through all your characters.
Yeah, but you had your legacy bar even before you hit level cap, so I don't quite count that as the same thing. But the point is that this is a system that does exist out there. It is something that a lot of games have used to ensure that, for instance, rest bonus and continuing to earn experience doing things is relevant even when you no longer need it to advance further.
It is an interesting read. Feel free to look it up. The title on the topic is Working XP into Endgame. It's in the general discussion. Feel free to peruse that or search for it. It's an interesting read. Make sure you read it all the way and provide some constructive feedback on it. Please don't flame it or praise it outright.
So, Nell, I know there was a couple other things that you wanted to bring up this week.
Yeah, speaking of the forums, guys, I know everyone's passionate and I know everyone's restless, but we really, really don't need definition wars on the forums.
Definition wars, for those of you who are not familiar with the forums, are essentially when, rather than talking about, just as an example, rather than talking about what it is that you dislike about Crystal Tower, arguing that, well, it's not technically a raid because of X. Well, Coil isn't technically a raid because of X. You essentially are saying, okay, here is a word, I'm creating a new definition of the word, specifically for this argument, to argue that I am right about this and I am upset about it. And it's usually used when, for instance, you're saying, well, when, for instance, one group is saying, there are no raids in Final Fantasy XIV. Well, what about Binding Coil? Well, that doesn't count as a raid.
It doesn't count as a raid because it's not multiple parties.
Or it doesn't count as a raid because it's not the pinnacle of Endgame in the case of Crystal Tower.
The developers put a category up there under Duty Finder called raid. What the developers decide is a raid is what the developers have chosen to list as what they consider a raid. If you disagree with that, your best solution is to send in proper feedback through the proper channels and explain that, no, you don't agree with this term. But if the developers decide to, no, we're going to stick with this term, suck it up, Buttercup.
And by the same token, there is a very helpful term for what you're thinking of in this case. For instance, progression endgame, which in this game comprises both Binding Coil, the EX primals, versus back in the launch of the game, it composed of a few dungeons, the hard mode primals, as well as Binding Coil. So just because something is called a raid, or is not called a raid, or is endgame progression, or is not endgame progression, you don't need to spend a whole lot of time arguing over what the definition of raid is. If you want, for instance, 24-person endgame content, just say that. That doesn't make Binding Coil less of a raid because it only contains 8 people.
And that's not literally the only term that was debated on the forums. There was at least 6 different topics in the last week debating the individual terms, terminology, and it's getting out of hand. I've said this before in other topics, and I'm not sure if I've said it on here, but type, think, then push enter.
And there's really nothing, I've seen people arguing over the definition of, well, this isn't technically elitist, this is hardcore, but that's not necessarily elitist. If you're getting into that minor niggling point of semantics, you're not producing an interesting discussion anymore. You're stymieing discussion, and you're trying to, argue tone instead of arguing content.
Forums are for improving the game with proper feedback under proper situations. They're for discussing people's excitement and bringing up points with the developers that we disagree with. Terminology is not one of those things.
And I guarantee you, unless, for instance, you see Yoshida himself posting on the forum saying, here is my definition of a hardcore player, here is my definition of a casual player, then I guarantee no one will ever agree on what those two terms mean. And even if he does, people still probably won't agree on exactly what those terms mean. You're not going to win this one. Just let it go.
Nobody's going to win in an argument about this. It's just going to be flaming back and forth, and the rest of the people are going to get caught in their crossfire. So just let it go. Walk away.
Turn away. Slam the door.
One other topic that I do want to bring up, though, before we get ready to call it a day. There was a topic recently up called Noob Tutorials. Elliot, did you have a look through that yet?
I did not, actually. I'm going to... This was your object of passion, so...
Now, it's not so much an object of passion as much as a casual observance. The topic was basically started as something that has come up a couple of times, where people saying that, well, I don't want to watch guides, I want to experience the game, and other people basically commenting, well, then you're just holding everybody else back. My post was very neutral on the subject, but at least I made my point clear. The game does not force YouTube loads when you zone into a dungeon. Therefore, it is not required. It is helpful, but not required.
Now, I can totally understand, for instance, if you have a Party Finder group and say in your Party Finder, okay, I want everyone please either have experience with the fight or have watched a video of the fight. That's fine. If you have a free company event and you say, everyone, please watch this video first, again, that's fine. But one of the things that bothers me more than anything when I'm in a dungeon tanking or healing or DPS is when someone immediately flips out because, oh, someone doesn't know the fights and now we're going to have to teach them. For me, that's one of the parts of the game that's fun. It's fun when, someone doesn't know the dungeon to be able to say, okay, here, we'll walk you through it. It's a little complicated, but you'll be able to learn it.
What happened to the interaction with the community? Why is the community interaction considered watching a YouTube video? What happened to talking to people?
Now, and again, I can totally understand this for, if you're high-end, progression-oriented group, I can understand saying, look, you need to watch this tutorial first. That's fine. You go into that first. But, well, it's much like people who are trying to do speed runs through the duty roulette. If you're making a party in Party Finder for this, that's totally fine. If you are expecting random people to live up to your expectations, then I don't think you quite understand what random people means.
Now, I can understand that tutorials are needed for some higher-end stuff, but you also have to understand, too, that those tutorials come from somewhere, i.e. personal experience. Do you think Blue Garter watched a tutorial on Turn 9?
For that matter, for some people, and I'm not really one of them, but sometimes for some people, a tutorial is actually less helpful than getting in, watching the fight, and possibly failing a couple times. There are people who learn better by not getting a text explanation, but getting, for instance, a quick couple lines of, okay, this is a thing that happens, this is a thing that happens, let's go, dying and seeing, oh, okay, I see what I need to do next time around.
Not to mention, and I'll say this quite honestly, watching a YouTube video, reading a strategy, those things are great, but they don't replace actual experience.
Pretty much nothing does. I could watch several tutorials on Titan hard mode back in the beginning of the game, and what actually made me good at the fight was, unsurprisingly, doing the fight and watching people screw it up and learning how to not screw it up.
Yep, and guess what, people? It'll suck for a while. It will suck. But you know what? If you teach people and you train people and you take some time to actually put some work into the community, you won't have so many bad players.
And you won't have people who, for instance, avoid videos and avoid random groups like the Plague because they think, oh, if I don't already know how to do this, I'm going to be ostracized and I'm going to, be crapped upon from great height. If you are actually welcoming, they will be like, oh, great, okay, I haven't done this before, so, please help me learn.
Yeah, yes, I know, I've done some tutorials. I have no problem admitting that. But my tutorials are not designed to force people to do things a certain way. They're designed to teach, and Elliot decides to go running off.
I didn't watch the video on this recording beforehand. Too long, didn't listen.
No wonder the video is now screwed up. Thank you very much. We're all gonna wipe now. Thanks, bye.
Okay, well, as Nell is rage quitting the group, I think this is as good a time as ever to wrap things up. So, as always, if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave us feedback on the YouTube video, or leave us feedback on Twitter. I am Elliot_Lefebvre. Super helpful, thank you. You can also let us know on the official Lodestone topic. This will be posted on the Moglog. You can leave us feedback in the comments field down there. So pretty much however you like to read it. The fastest way is via the forums or via YouTube, but we will read your feedback no matter where you post it.
As always, you can leave any positive or negative comments in the box below. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you do have any suggestions, comments, please feel free to give us any kind of constructive feedback. We're more than willing to listen. I know recently we were asked if somebody else can join the show. I'm going to be honest, at the moment, I think 2 is enough for the show. It's not to say we won't eventually maybe bring guests in to bring up topics, but as of right now, for permanent hosts, I think 2 is a limit.
With the occasional appearance by our cameraman. Hello, cameraman.
It's just a camera, don't wave to him.
I'll wave to whatever I want.
Okay, now we're gonna have to pay him. Alright, thank you very much for watching, everybody. This is now Celestine.
And this is Elliot Lefebvre.
Bidding you adieu.